As a point of comparison, one of the songs I have to talk to you about is Blue Monday. In my opinion, that's one of those other songs, a New Order tune that, again, it's a song that changes the landscape. It's a song that many musicians listened to, and it was, it maybe drew on Kraftwerk, it drew on some of those earlier things, but it was different. It sounded fresh. It still sounds new today when you hear it, I think.
Yeah, don't ask me why, because I don't bloody know. But I was there, and we did it, and I remember how difficult it was to write, because how difficult it was to sequence. The sequencer that we were using was a custom built in binary code, 15 on, 1 off, to play the riff, and if you were programming a 9-minute song, and if you made one mistake at 8.5 minutes, you had to go back to 1.
And start over.
And start over again to get back until you did one pass where I remember Barney sitting there and going, right, and he'd have it all written out on paper and be going, 1, on, off, on, off, and, and doing it absolutely ridiculously with the Prophets, Prophet 5. And it was a home-built transcendent sequencer.
That you hooked up to a Prophet 5.
Yeah, with the control voltage.
Right.
To get the sounds. And it seems absolutely bizarre now, again, because it's so easy now. But, it does come down to songwriting. And whilst everybody may have the equipment in their little box, not everybody's got the ability to write a song like Blue Monday. I mean, it was quite odd because we never thought that Blue Monday was that great. It was just another song. We actually did it, as Bernard says, so that we could play it when we went off, because everybody was moaning at us because we didn't play for long enough. We only played for like 23 minutes. Which seemed long. That seemed a long time. That seemed about right to me.
Right.
I must admit. The other odd thing about getting older is that you do an hour and a half and it's like, is that all? It's weird, and yet then we used to play for 23 minutes and we used to wonder why we always had so many riots. Why are they rioting? What's the matter with them? And Blue Monday we did so that we could play a song while we went off.
Right.
That was the idea of us doing it.
Right, so the sequencer would just continue to play the riff and the drum part, and you'd leave, right?
We would leave and we'd press the button and then it would play Blue Monday.
Yeah.
So to stop them moaning. That was the idea of it,
right.
And as we did it in the studio and it grew, Bernard, I can't remember who suggested it. I think it's probably Rob Gretton, to be honest, said, why don't you put a vocal on it? It sounds like it needs a vocal. Because the vocal was done last. There was no vocal written. Everything was on the song, even the bass guitar and everything. And the vocal was added last as a real afterthought. And, lo and behold, it was amazing, it wasn't a huge hit when it first came out. It did well, but it didn't do that well because we wouldn't do an edited version for the radio.
Right, it came out as a 12-inch. The actual sleeve of the original is in the exhibit downstairs that Peter Seville designed.
The sleeve that actually cost us 10p more than the record made. Which is interesting because Steve Morris worked out it was actually the bit she didn't get that cost the money.
Cutting out the die-cut parts,
cut,
like of
they had to go through.
It looked like the floppy disk.
Yeah,
right?
The guy had to do 4 cuts with it on 4 different machines
right.
for one sleeve, and so I think they sold it for something like £3.20, and it actually cost £3.30.
Right.
And nobody at factory spotted it until it was the biggest selling 12-inch of all time. I know I'll never understand why anyone laughs at that because it's not fucking funny. They're just bastards, aren't
But it kept you writing great songs.
Yeah, as well as the taxman. Yeah. So, Blue Monday, some of the stories are great. I mean, someone told me a fantastic one about Dave Stewart. And
from the Eurythmics.
Yeah, when he was coming home from his last session, they'd just finished their new LP.
Yeah.
It wasn't as the Eurythmics, it was as the Dave Stewart
Before
band.
Right,
yeah. And he was driving home and it was him and the other 3 band members in the back of the cab. And Blue Monday came on the radio. And Dave Stewart was like, oh, fucking turn it up. And he listened to it. And he made the guy pull over while they all sat there and listened. And they were all listening to it. And Dave Stewart turned around and he went, right, back to the studio. We're going to start again.
Wow.
And that was like, and I was like, wow, which is true. You know, he went back and he made the whole band start the whole album again.
Right.
They must have been gutted. They're like, oh. And Kraftwerk, which was hilarious because we did it in Britannia Row, a Pink
Okay,
Floyd
right.
studio in Islington, and it was a really old studio. It was fantastic. The equipment was great, but it was really old, and we were having to do bizarre things, you know, like tying drumsticks to the pan pedal so we could move it quickly. You know, on with the
So you could get that
drumstick.
sound
Yeah,
where the drums
you know, when it
shifted
was going all over. And
Right.
the bass drum sound we got in a little tiled room that they had in the basement that we'd found, routing, and we had the speaker set up in it that Martin Hannett had taught us
Okay.
to pump it, and we, you know,
Right,
it
to
was
get a kind of
pumping the
natural
sound, yeah,
reverb or echo in the
to
room.
get that sound. It was how we got the bass drum sound, and the other one was Kraftwerk, which was really ironic because we'd been ripping off Kraftwerk for years.
Right.
They decided that Blue Monday was the best thing they'd ever heard, so
Yeah.
they booked into Britannia Row to do their next single, and they also thought they'd done a complete coup, and they booked our engineer, Mike Johnson, and they went into the studio to do Tour de France, actually. And when they got there, they were looking around going, this place is shit. This is shit. And they got Mike Johnson and said, this isn't where they recorded it. You're lying to us. And they wouldn't, they fucking stormed out. They said, that fucking New Order lying. You know, you're like, wow.